I apologize for being late tonight. I apologize as well that I didn't do a prediction video last night. I'm going to go ahead and share with everybody what's been going on. My son and I moved here in November. And at the start of it, he was doing really well in school. Everything was going really well. Lately, there's been stuff going on. Stuff he hasn't been talking about. 3 times in the last week and a half, he's disappeared for over 24 hours without a word, a text, a call, anything. I knew he wasn't at school. The worrying part was none of his friends knew where he was either. We've talked. His friends have talked to him. He's spending the weekend at a camp away from all of this with the friend of his I trust the most. Ironically, one of the days that he wasn't here, his best friend showed up here, had been kicked out of his house, so we had him stay over, and we, took him in for a night, and that seemed to impress him and his dad, because his dad is now willing to take my son to this sort of a retreat kind of thing that I think he needs for a few days. So that's why I've been kind of scatterbrained. I've been sleeping maybe 3 to 4 hours a night. There is no worry greater for a parent than not knowing where your child is. And because he's 17, it's not like I can just call the police, because I know he's out there. I know he's, not in a ditch somewhere. Although that does start to hit your brain at about 24 hours. Especially when you haven't been sleeping and you don't hear anything, and then you start thinking, am I gonna get a phone call? Is there a police officer coming? So I'm only mentioning this now publicly on my main channel, away from just my patron videos, because I think we're coming out of it. And I think from here going forward, tonight I should sleep really well, and from here going forward we should be all right. So yeah, there's been a lot of nights where I've done a lot of videos back to back to back to back, and then just gone and had a nervous breakdown after I'm done that last video. So, if I've been inaccurate lately or short, I'm always short physically, but I mean just emotionally just short and just not 100% with it. It's just sleep deprivation combined with stress, and it's been having a physical toll on me as well. I think that's part of the reason why I got sick a week and a half ago. Just the stress. So I think we're through the worst of that. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about Vancouver today, only because they announced their coach, Travis Green. And I'm not sure what the vitriol is that people have against the management team in Vancouver. So let's discuss that a little bit, shall we? Also, I verified that this microphone now is the only audio source that can be used by this computer. I went into the damn device manager. Thank God I spent all those years on shitty computers from the 90s, so that I remember Microsoft still has it all in Windows 10. You just have to dig for it. And I made sure it can't use another audio source but this microphone. Every other audio source on this computer is dead. So, if something happens to this microphone, I'm going to become a mime. But, yeah, so, here's the thing. So, people shit on Trevor Linden being the guy in charge. Fine, I guess. When Brendan Shanahan was named the guy in charge in Toronto, part of it was PR. Just a little bit. Okay, just a little bit. Linden is in charge for PR. He's a smart guy. He's a nice guy, and people genuinely like Trevor Linden. It was a safe pick. Jim Benning's the GM because, honestly, he was seen as a very intelligent general manager in waiting, much like Jim Nill in Dallas. And I don't think he's done a bad job in the last year. Jim Benning comes in, and he's got a lot of crap contracts with a lot of guys who are past their prime. Okay. A farm system that's garbage. I mean, let's just say it for what it is, okay? The Canucks have been garbage at drafting talent, for the most part, until the last few years. And the last few years only look stellar because they're not drafting garbage anymore. And they're able to pull guys out in later rounds. And the free agency signings they've made, not the Louis Eriksson type, but the Troy Stecher type, those have been good for the most part. Because you get a Stecher and you get a Zalewski. But again, you're not losing anything by signing guys as free agents. It's just money and a contract. You're not trading away assets to get these guys. So for me, Benning gets a lot of crap, and I gave him a lot during last summer. I don't need to watch all my old videos to know. I gave him a lot of crap last summer, and rightfully so, because some of the moves he made were baffling. But over the last year, he's done a lot. I think Goldobin's been a fantastic pickup. We'll see if he pans out long term. I think he could. At the very least, for Hansen, it's a good move. And just in general, the Canucks prospect system looks to be better than what it was. Ulevy looks like he's going to be a keeper. Whoever they drafted, people are always asking me, who do you want the Canucks to draft? Best player available. I don't care if it's a center. I don't care if it's a defenseman. I want the best player available. The smart GMs, the smartest GMs always draft the best player available. You don't draft by position. If you draft by position, you're screwing yourself over. So for me, Benning gets a pass. Now we're bringing up Travis Green. Travis Green is what the Canucks should have been doing the whole time. You look at a guy and you say, this is our future coach. You can put him in the American Hockey League, give him a few years with your young players or your projects. And Utica's been mostly projects. Not a lot of prospects have spent a lot of time in Utica who are premier forwards. And the funny thing is, people are talking about how Jake Virtanen didn't turn it around under Travis Green. The reports I've read in the last 24 hours are this. He has challenged Jake Virtanen and got in his face. And basically said, you're not living up to your potential because you're not committing to it. You're not committing to doing the things you have to do in order to be an NHL player. Word has it, Virtanen's got in better shape, and by the end of the year, he was playing much better hockey. In an interview today, what Travis Green said before the game tonight on Hockey Night Canada, and if you're missing the St. Louis-Nashville game, I'm sorry, you're missing a fantastic game. I hope Kevin Fiala is okay. I'll talk about that in a bit. But Green said he's been an NHL player, and he has. He's played over 900 games. And what gets me is when people say, oh, I didn't like him as a player. That doesn't matter. Star players don't make great coaches. And sometimes fringe NHL players or guys who are okay make great coaches. Famously, Don Cherry played one NHL game in his career. One. Original Six era or not, he played one game. And he was a great coach. How many teams did Pat Burns play for in his NHL career? Ken Hitchcock? So, for people to say, oh, I don't like Green. Green played 900 games. And I don't care what Mike Milbury said about him. Milbury beat a guy with his shoe in the 70s. That makes your opinion invalid. I'm not going to take your opinion as one of a person with great intelligence when you decided Alexei Yashin was somebody you should invest in, and this Luongo kid probably wasn't going to amount to anything. Well, go out and get DiPietro instead. And if anybody says, well, that was Charles Wong's decision to make, then Milbury was gutless as a GM and wouldn't stand up for himself. So there you go, okay? Travis Green has coached Utica well, considering what he's been given. He's a very good coach. What the Canucks need right now is a guy who can be a very good coach. I'm all for the tear down rebuild. I'm all for it. When the Canucks hired Travis Green, right away it's, well, he gets a lot out of crappy teams. This is what Botsford says, of course. Well, what about Babcock and Toronto? Babcock's first year, Toronto just tanked. But they started playing differently. And you could see in Toronto's game that even though they were the worst team in the league, their game was better. Their systems were better. And players who weren't buying into that system, they were gone. They were done. Travis Green apparently coaches a defensive style, defensive system. I think Bo Horvat will excel in that kind of system. I think Bo Horvat has the potential to be the next Ryan Kessler without the prick element. I really do. I think, for me, I think that what Bo Horvat's able to do could be accentuated by a coach like Travis Green. And you can't gloss over what Green's done. Green resurrected Markström's career. When Jacob Markström was sent down, keep in mind, Markström cleared waivers. He was done. When the Canucks traded Eddie Lack and decided to keep Markström, everybody thought they were insane. And for what? A draft pick that became Brisebois and a 7th rounder the year after? Oh, that's nothing. And if you look at the Canucks depth chart in terms of prospects, Brisebois has an outside shot at an NHL role in the next, say, 3 years. But Markström has become a pretty good goaltender. And I was right there with people who said, I can't believe we're trading Lack. My thing with Lack, though, was this. I felt that Lack was replaceable. Whether it was Markström or wasn't Markström, I feel like goaltenders these days are relatively easy to, especially backups, relatively easy to find a half-decent backup. You look at the Leafs as an example. McElhinney comes in on waivers and is their best backup all year. And if the Leafs give McElhinney, say, $1 million for next year, he comes back. So, I wasn't that upset about Lack and Markström in terms of who they kept. I wasn't sold on Markström either, but he got better. But the Canucks, and I had a video, 2 months ago? Maybe not even, where I talk about the Canucks draft picks. Their ability to get nothing at the draft table. And that this is what they're leaving, and I'm looking around for the book now. This is what they're leaving their coach to develop into the next big thing. Alright, I grabbed last year's Guide Record book. Remember when the Blackhawks were Stanley Cup champions? I don't think the Blackhawks remember right now. Alright, Vancouver Canucks. So remember, what the criticism was regarding the new coach is he couldn't turn the Canucks prospects into fantastic players. If you go back to 2009, because you're looking at prospects over the last 7-8 years, if you're looking at your minor league system, Jordan Schrader, Anton Rodin, Kevin Connaughton, Jeremy Price, Peter Anderson, Joe Canada, Stephen Anthony. 2010, Patrick McNally, Adam Polasek, Alex Friesen, Jonathan Iolati, Sawyer Hane. 2011, Nicholas Jensen, David Honzik, Alexander Grenier, Joseph Labate, Ludwig Blomstrand, Frankie Corrado, Patrick Westerholm, Henrik Tomernes. So you have Corrado who's gone, Jensen who's gone, Labate who's was up with the Canucks for the last portion of the year. 2012, Brendan Gaunce, whose defensive game improved under Travis Green. Alexander Mallet, come on, seriously? Ben Hutton didn't play for Green. Wesley Myron and Matthew Beattie. 2013, Bo Horvat jumped straight past Utica, straight into the NHL. Hunter Shinkaruk. Now, if Shinkaruk, who was mentioned yesterday by Botchford, and I only say that because There are fans who agree with this opinion. The Green didn't develop Canucks players properly. Hunter Shinkaruk hasn't become a household name in Calgary either. Hey, I expected it too. Maybe Hunter Shinkaruk wasn't that good. Maybe Benning knew what he was doing, flipping him from Marcus Granlund. Maybe I was 100% wrong. Cole Castles, injured, and, it really held him back. Not Green's fault. Jordan Subban, getting better defensively. Still small. I don't think the Canucks are sold on his NHL potential, and I think he's a trade piece somewhere during the summer. Anton Cederholm, Mike Williamson, Miles Liberati. 2014, the famous Jake Virtanen. Jared McCann went to Florida, flopped there. I was wrong. I admit it. Thatcher Demko looked pretty good. Nikita Trampkin looked pretty good going back to the KHL. Gustav Forsling traded to Chicago. Whoops. Kyle Pettit and Mackenzie Stewart. 2015, Brock Besser, straight to the Canucks. Guillaume Brisebois, Dmitry Zukhanov, Carl Neal, Adam Gaudette, Lucas Jasic, and Tate Olson. All right, so which one of these fantastic prospects up until that season, and I'm not counting the last draft, of course, because they're just drafted. They're either in juniors or they're in the NHL. So where exactly was Travis Green supposed to work magic with those guys? Either they weren't playing for Utica, they're in the NHL with the Canucks, they're with another organization, they're still in juniors, some of them didn't even sign. It's the constant negativity, and it's funny because you see it outside of Vancouver towards the Canucks. Up until this season for the Oilers, it was everywhere. Everybody, Coilers, that was the big nickname that somebody somewhere came up with because it's so clever, and everybody rolled with it. The Flames became the Lames because that's so funny, and everybody rolled with it. It's so stupid. And the Maple Leafs, of course, the Maple Laughs, and everybody rolled because it's just so clever. Us Canadians are so funny. We may want to rethink that when you consider what we do with our hockey teams. But, it's like Toronto proved all the haters wrong this year. Calgary pretty much did as well. Calgary still needs help in certain parts of the game, but they made the playoffs. Edmonton right now is in the playoffs. Montreal, playoffs. Now, there's the criticism it's just Carey Price, there's nothing else. That's overly simplifying the issue. There's definitely more to Montreal than just Carey Price, but it's a pretty easy hit. Ottawa made the playoffs. Winnipeg, you could criticize Winnipeg, I guess, but I don't hear a lot of it. I think a lot of people are rooting for Winnipeg because they're the underdogs, and they haven't really done anything before. So that leaves Vancouver. And the vitriol they get, and it's funny because I don't even understand it anymore. I understood it when Burroughs was here. I understood it when Kessler was here. I understood it to some extent when BX was here. BX was a nice guy, but man, he could be a prick. And he was usually entertaining. In that normally what he was doing to the other team was entertaining. And when you look at some of those guys and fights with Iginla especially, you'd see some vicious fights. But this, to me, is part of the build. And it's like, everybody says, well, the Canucks are in a rebuild and they're going to suck for 3 or 4 years. Oh, okay. And? So how does signing Green, if Green's a shitty coach, that's a brilliant hire if you want to be last overall next year. I don't think they do, though. I think after the deadline, I think they said, all right, we're going to get as many prospects as we can. We're going to drop down. We're going to see if we can get that number 1 draft pick. I think that was the plan. Now, we'll find out in the draft lottery on Saturday, which, yes, I will be live broadcasting, who gets which draft pick. But, it's funny to me because if the Canucks get that number 1 draft pick, the first thing people are going to say is, well, Nolan Patrick's not a franchise player, so Canucks still suck anyways. Can't wait to see how they screw this guy up like they've screwed everybody else up. Name a single really high quality prospect the Canucks have ruined. the funny thing is, I really don't think high-quality prospects get ruined. I think they just don't pan out. You can draft, you can scout all you want, but when they're 17, 18 years old, it's a crapshoot. Unless it's Crosby or Matthews or one of these guys, it's a crapshoot. You're picking. Really, it's really hard to tell who the great and the bad players are in juniors, because they're not finished growing yet. They're not finished learning everything they're going to learn on the ice yet. In some cases, they play for teams that make them look better than they are or make them look worse than they are. So you draft them, you hope you did well. Once in a while, a 6th-round draft pick turns out to be better than a guy drafted in the 1st round. It happens. And in the Canucks case, when you look back over their history, they've done some pretty poor drafting. But I can't think of a single prospect the Canucks have had that they ruined. I can't. They haven't had that many high draft picks. You have Petr Nedvěd, who was okay. He was never really spectacular. He had some good seasons, but he had a lot of iffy ones, and he had some bad ones too. Bure was a great prospect that they snuck into the draft. When they drafted Bure, teams argued that they shouldn't have been allowed because of the round he was drafted in, and I think it had to do with his age as well. I know that other teams didn't think Bure was eligible. It wasn't that Pat Quinn knew something they didn't know. All the GMs knew what Bure could be. It's just they didn't think he was eligible in that later round. So when the Canucks made that move, they were like, wait a minute, he's eligible? He's not eligible. And they went to the NHL and fought it, and the Canucks won. The other top prospects, you have the Sedins. I think they've worked out relatively well. And then what, Virtanen? They didn't ruin Virtanen. They probably shouldn't have drafted Virtanen as high as they did. That's not ruining a guy. That's just not doing your homework. Or not drafting the best player available. Anyways, that's enough rambling for me on this topic. Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thanks a lot for watching. There's a couple other things I want to talk about tonight, and we're going to dive into that as soon as I get this uploaded. Thanks for watching.